So I have to admit, I feel a little guilty that I actually have slides and the last few didn't. So, but I actually spent a lot of time working on these. I have 47 slides I have to get through in 10 minutes, so I'm going to start pummeling through now. So I founded Flow Labs, and part of what we do is we do research and experimental experiences and how we could tap into flow and harness flow to kind of exercise our innate abilities to not only exercise higher degrees of performance, but also how we could tap into that to heal ourselves and exercise higher degrees of homeostasis. And my story starts on how I discovered flow with this book. This is a graphic novel I wrote called The Inventor, based on a true story of Nikola Tesla and how him and Thomas Edison battled it out in the late 1800s to figure out which technology, AC or DC, would power the planet. And I had a movie deal with a big movie studio to turn this into a movie. And I had the world in the palm of my hand. And 2 weeks before we were about to close, they merged with another entertainment company, and everybody on the film side that I was working with got fired. So my deal just went away. And then 2 weeks later, I got struck with Lyme disease. So my entire world came crashing down on me. So if anyone knows anyone that's had Lyme disease, it's one of the most hardest diseases to diagnose, and it's even harder to treat. And I started by losing 30 pounds in a month. I had blindness bouts that would happen just throughout the day. I would have heart palpitations around every corner. I felt like I could have a heart attack at any point in time. And there'd be nights I'd wake up in the middle of the night just gasping for air because my body forgot how to breathe. I had to create manual breathing rhythms just until it synced back up. And these are some of the other symptoms I had to go through. So I went through 3 months of doctors at test hospitals and all sorts of things, and nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. And their final conclusion was, we think you have anxiety, here's some Prozac. So I knew that wasn't the answer, but I didn't know what was. So I literally did not think I'd survive 2012, which is when this happened. So I thought my last act on this planet was going to be to release this graphic novel I spent 2 years working on and maybe inspire some kid to continue his research or move into science. So I convinced the publisher to let me release it at Comic-Con. I had 3 days of book signings. I missed the first 2 days because I was too sick to show up. And the last day I showed up, there's this long line of people waiting for me to sign the book, which I was surprised. And as I started doing the book signing, within the first 10 minutes, my body felt normal for the first time. My brain fog went away, my joints tightened up, my muscles felt solid, and I thought to myself, wow, this is what it felt like to be healthy. It's been 7 months on this downward spiral, and I almost forgot. About 25 minutes into it, I felt like I just went skydiving. I was high, had this adrenaline rush. Everything was vibrant. People looked beautiful again. I was like, gosh, I really want to live. So it gave me hope, and I thought to myself, well, maybe if I could figure out what's happening here, I could hack this mystery illness and cure myself and heal myself. So I spent the next 4 years visiting over 40 health practitioners from various modalities, technologists, scientists, anyone on the fringe, to learn how they look at the mind-body system and how they treat it. And one of the things I ran into in this process was some research on flow states through my friend Stephen Kotler. And he talks about how action-adventure athletes defy death, break world records, do these superhuman things by tapping into flow. And as I started practicing and exercising, getting into these states, I would get better while I was in these states, but these states would only last for these moments, up to an hour at most. And I'd fall back down into my default baseline state, which was very low and non-functional. So I thought to myself, well, I need to figure out how to raise this baseline, because that's where I'm operating at, not these peak performance moments. So I essentially thought back to, well, what was happening when I was signing these books and I felt normal for the first time? And I realized there's all this love and appreciation people were giving me for putting this book, this piece of art into the world. And I realized, wow, love is actually what was inducing flow in me at that point in time. And I was like, if love was inducing flow in me, what is flow? I know what the effects of flow are. When you're in a flow state, you have dopamine, you have non-epinephrine, you have all these neurotransmitters kicking in, making your reaction time so much faster, your brain processes information faster, but what's the source of it? And after a lot of thinking and research and experimenting, I kind of came to the conclusion, flow is really our life force, right? And in East Asia, we call this chi. India, we refer to as prana. George Lucas calls it the force. UCSB is starting to do research now on life force, and they're referring to it as a biofield. So I thought, okay, so how do I increase the amount of life force I'm getting into my body? Because that's essentially what's keeping me up and alive. So as I tracked this further, I realized that my emotional states had a lot to do with it. So if I was experiencing fear-based emotions like anxiety, anger, jealousy, insecurity, things like that, I would contract this pipe to accessing more of this flow. And if I was experiencing trust-based emotions like gratitude, humility, courage, I'd be expanding this pipe to access more of this flow, and I'd function better. So I realized, okay, my mindset has a lot to do with how much flow I access. What else is there? Well, I narrowed it down to 5 major things on what I spent my time optimizing my life around to access more flow. So the mind was the first thing. The second is the body, and we heard a lot about that today. The diet, the stuff we put in and on our body had an incredible impact on if it was going to block my access to getting more flow or open me up to getting more flow. Social interactions, people. I found that the more I interacted with people when I went to yoga classes versus doing yoga on my own, or going to birthday parties, things like that, I actually was feeding off people and my body felt normal. The minute I started isolating myself is when my body would start crashing again. So I found that social interactions actually helped feed me flow. The environment was another one. The more I spent time outside in nature, I was feeding off of the flow that was in nature. And then lifestyle. Everything from our circadian rhythms that I would tap into, from when I'd wake up to go to bed, times I would eat, all that had an impact. And the thing that had the most impact on me that I was surprised was all the creative projects and endeavors I was doing. The more creative things I was doing, the better I felt. And one of the things I did was play the piano. So I started playing the piano more, and the more I played, the better I felt, and the better I felt, the more I played. So that inspired me to say, hey, I wonder if I could multiply this flow idea and get more people in on it. So I created this show called Flow, which is like yoga mixed with Cirque du Soleil, my piano concert. So I was able to gather a bunch of dancers, contortionists, aerialists, performers to do a piano concert with me. And we do these at performing arts centers around the country. And we turned yoga into performing arts, essentially. And by the end of the 3-month run, I actually became asymptomatic of Lyme. It felt like it boosted my immune system so high that I didn't have any more symptoms and I was good. So I was like, wow, there's something here I need to really tap into or learn more about. So I would be practicing one day, and a lot of what I do is improvise, and I'd be just jamming on my piano when there are people around. And one day I looked up and all 6 people were passed out. And I was thinking to myself, oh man, maybe they got bored of my music, maybe I've been playing that same thing too long. And as they came to, they started telling me that, wow, I felt like I was teleported here, or I had this emotional release and all these wild dreams and crazy experiences, and it happened over and over again. And I thought to myself, wow, I wonder if this is a thing. I wonder if instead of doing a show now, maybe I could turn this into an experience, a flow experience. So I started organizing these piano sound baths, and I've moonlighted as a piano shaman. So I started these, and first it was like 10 and 20 people that would come, and then over time, it started growing, to 30, 50, hundreds, and then at some point it hit over 1,000. And people were really coming and connecting with these piano meditation concerts, which who would have ever thought, right? And what I'd do is I'd improvise and play for about an hour while people lay down and just drop in and let go and allow themselves to access flow, and then allow me to feed them, and their letting go was feeding me, so it created a complete feedback loop, a closed loop system in the flow world. So it started catching on, and until most recently I got invited to perform at Carnegie Hall, which will be the first time, which is this Tuesday, which is the first time in their 125-year history that they're actually having a musical meditation experience. So, thank you. So what's interesting is I would have hundreds of people come back to me with what their experiences were, ranging from, gosh, I was dancing blissfully across the cosmos like I was on some psychedelic, to I had all this emotional releases. I was crying the whole time. I just released 15 years of trauma from my father passing away, to a whole other group saying that, gosh, I had all this pain that went away that's been there for 3 months, or even a significant relief in symptoms from their diseases. So I was thinking to myself, gosh, is this really that powerful? So I know, I've done a lot of research in meditation and know that there's a lot of benefits to meditation, from regenerating brain cells if you do it 20 minutes a day for 8 weeks. They've proven, they have studies on that. And also how it decreases inflammation in the body. But what about music? So I started looking at some of the research around music, and I found some interesting things. Music's one of the only things that actually lights up your entire brain. This is a brain image of someone listening to an Argentine tango track out of Finland, and it not only lights up the auditory systems, but entire other networks in your brain are lit up just by listening. There's another study that was done. Turns out that people that are highly empathetic, which is about 20% of the population, actually process music differently than those that are not. And they actually gain much more pleasure out of listening to music because it lights up their social networks in their brain. And I found this study, which was interesting, in Switzerland, how they're using music to actually to build the brains of very premature babies. And they're finding that by putting, if you can see the headphones on them, by having them listen to music, it actually increases their motor skills significantly. And then there's therapy that's done by, a study by NYU showing how they're using therapy to actually significantly reduce pain, depression, anxiety, and even shortness of breath and other symptoms in patients in hospices. So all this started lining up with the feedback I've been getting. So I was like, wow, maybe there is something to music. And what if we combine music with meditation? What can we do with that? So we started wiring some people up during some of our sound baths and tracking brainwaves and heart rates. And some of the things that we found that was interesting is all the heart rates would drop down to their level of homeostasis, as you'd expect when people are getting relaxed. But what was interesting is 15 minutes roughly into the concert, they latched onto the tempo of how I was playing, and they all moved up and down with my tempo. So I went from being a piano shaman to being a piano Pied Piper. And so we're now actually designing a study right now to actually take this further and do an epigenetic examination to see, take blood before and after to see what inflammatory genes we could turn off during these sound baths. So we're working on that now. So we know music can help us tap into flow, but what I really care about, what I'm really interested in, is can music really become medicine? And if so, can we make it prescriptive? And every ounce in my body says the answer is yes. Thank you. So now I'm going to give you guys a little experience of a piano sound bath. It's going to be a short one, 10 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes. And I invite you to close your eyes if you like. You're welcome to leave them open too. And I'll improvise this piece, but at the end of the piece, I will bring you back to the room with the sound of my voice, okay? And before we start, I just want to create a quick connection with you, and I'd like to ask you all to take one giant deep breath with me. Okay, all you have to do is just enjoy the music. Yeah, you're welcome to lie down if you like to get the full experience. Okay, I won't step on you. And you could probably, okay, cool. Oh, this is so cool. Yeah, you're fine. Lights off. Yeah, if you dim them, that'd be great. That's good. I'll wake you up. That's fine. No, that's good. I think that's good right there. I need to see the keys.